Check this one out today. Sweat Equity, paid in full. Just got this shirt. It's fucking awesome. Anyways, one of the things I want to share real quick is the length-tension relationship. This explains a lot. A lot of people don't understand how their muscles work or why things are the way they are. And if they don't understand how something works, you can't effectively develop a strategy, at least not a good one, to overcome whatever it is you want to overcome. So if you want to maximize your return on investment of time and effort to build muscle or get stronger, or just anything that you would train for in the gym, you're going to need to understand this. This will explain a lot. So I talked about this before. Your capacity to produce force is greatest when your muscles are near their mid-range, and it's lowest when they're in their fully lengthened and fully shortened position. So capacity to produce force, fully lengthened position. So we go over to the fully shortened position. Capacity to produce force is very, very low again. So right there in the middle, their capacity is greatest. This explains a lot in terms of why certain exercises have the effect that they do. So bench pressing, squatting, deadlifting. A lot of people say, "Oh, those exercises, you can use the most amount of weight on those exercises because the most amount of muscles are involved." And while this is true, it is an incomplete explanation. Why can you use the most amount of weight? What else is happening that is promoting this? What's happening is that the primary muscle groups during these movements are in or near their mid-range for the majority of the movement. So they're working in this range right here for the most of the movement. They're never really in a fully lengthened or fully shortened position. And as a result, your capacity to produce force is usually going to be very, very high in relation to what you could do when performing other exercises, depending on what those exercises are. It will also explain why doing only those exercises will result in imbalanced development or incomplete growth, incomplete, potential. You're not maximizing your potential if you're not training your muscles to the fullest of their ability, to the fullest of their capacity. So one of the things you're going to want to include in your muscle building strategy, or strategy to get stronger, is exercises that train your muscles in their fully lengthened and fully shortened position, so that you overload the muscles throughout their entirety to promote the greatest growth response possible. So this should do a lot in explaining why things are the way they are for most people. There's the diagram again, one more time. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We'll talk about a squat and a deadlift. Now with the squat and the deadlift, primary muscle groups for squat, a lot of people say quads. Deadlift, a lot of people say hamstrings. They're both involved to a fairly great degree on both of those exercises, and the glutes are also major players. Now if we talk about the quads and the hamstrings, though, the quad, you got the rectus femoris, which crosses the hip and the knee. And with the hamstrings, you got the semimembranosus and the semitendinosus, which also crosses the hip and the knee. When you perform a squat or deadlift, an exercise in which the hip and knee joint are in motion, what's happening is those three muscles I just mentioned, the two hamstring muscles and the one quad muscle, they remain in a relatively unchanged, lengthened position throughout the lift. So for the rectus femoris, as you bend at the hip to descend into a squat, you're extending at the knee. So the muscle is shortening at the hip, but lengthening at the knee. Its resting length remains relatively unchanged. Therefore, it stays closest to its mid-range, and its capacity to produce force is very, very high throughout the entire movement. The same for the hamstrings. As you flex at the hip, you're stretching the hamstrings at the hip, but you're flexing at the knee as you descend into a squat or a deadlift. Therefore, those hamstring muscles remain relatively unchanged in terms of their length, and their capacity to produce force remains very, very high. This is why you can lift the most amount of weight on those exercises. This is also why you need to do other exercises to fully develop those muscles, because they're never going into fully lengthened or shortened positions during those lifts. And if you want to maximize your return on investment of time, you're going to need to include other ways of doing that. So this should explain why a lot of things are the way they are, why the bang for your buck movements that you do are the way they are. The major muscles are generally closest to their mid-range for the majority of the lift. And if you want to maximize your return on investment of time and effort, and also prevent any sort of imbalances from getting out of hand, which will happen if you exclusively only perform certain exercises a certain way and you fail to train your muscles in their fully lengthened and shortened position, and is why you want to include variations of exercises or whatever exercises, and you have the free will to choose whatever the ones you want are, as long as you adhere to this simple relationship, the length tension relationship. So I hope that helps most people. That should help in understanding the way your muscles work. You now have a better idea of why your muscles work the way that they do, or why they work in a certain way, and what you need to include to maximize your return on investment of time and effort. If you like the information, feel free to share it, pass it forward. I can guarantee about 99.9% of people in gyms would benefit from knowing this. There's probably very few that already understand it. And the ones that do probably haven't had it explained like this. So this will probably lead to a lot of people having some, aha moments as to, oh, that's why things are the way they are. That's why I got to do what I got to do. That's why, these things work and why these things don't work. If you like the information, feel free to share it. Like I said, click the fucking button at the bottom, subscribe to the channel, I'll keep bringing it.